Welcome back to the Six Pack Dad Tribe podcast. I'm Kris. I'm the GM at the Tribe and also one of the Tribe coaches. Been coaching for the Tribe for 3 years now. I've helped over 100 guys go through the program and achieve the best physique of their adult lives in a sustainable way. And one thing I coach all my clients on to help them develop sustainable nutrition habits is swapping out foods rather than cutting out foods. This is a mistake a lot of people make when they start dieting and trying to lose fat is they think they need to cut things out. But oftentimes we just need to switch the kinds of foods that we're eating, and just switch to healthier alternatives, especially of our favorite foods. Find ways to eat our favorite foods in a healthier way, and that allows us to lose fat without suffering and lose fat in a sustainable way. Because ultimately, the diet that's going to be successful for you is the one you can sustain long term. Diets don't work because they're short term pursuits. They are quick fixes. They're shortcuts and they don't last. And the second you stop a diet and go back to what you were doing before is when you're going to gain back all that weight. So we need to fundamentally change how we eat, and swapping foods is the best way to do that. And so today I wanted to talk about the 4 carb swaps I recommend. And I'm focusing on carbs in this presentation because I think carbs the first thing people cut out or think they need to cut out when they are trying to lose fat. And it's not necessarily the worst mindset to have. Carbs are really tasty. Breads, pastas, refined sugars, they can definitely add up really quickly. They are very present in the diet, but they're not the whole problem. But again, it would help to address those. And again, rather than cutting them out, finding healthier alternatives for things like breads, pastas, rice, sugar is going to be very, very helpful for you on your fat loss journey. So I'm going to run you through 4 different carb swaps, covering the 4 different main groups of carbs that people typically eat, specifically the refined carbs people typically eat and struggle with, so that you can go to the grocery store this next week armed with some ideas on how to find healthier versions of some of your favorite carbs. So number one, pasta. Most people love pasta. I love pasta. I actually ate it for a long time. That was one of my favorite foods as a kid. Into college, I lived off of pasta. But pasta can definitely add up, especially when it's mixed with oil, olive oil, sauces, all that. It's definitely not one of not one of the healthiest foods out there. And so, how can we make this a little bit healthier? So, some of my favorite substitutes are chickpea pastas. Brown rice and quinoa pastas are similar. And then veggie pastas, it could be things like zucchini noodles and stuff like that. Chickpea pastas are what you're going to most typically see in a grocery store. There's a bunch of different brands out there on my screen here. I have the brand Barilla. They make a great chickpea pasta. Chickpea is a bean that's higher in protein, higher in fiber, and they use that to make noodles. And a couple of years ago, chickpea pasta was disgusting. It was horrible. Did not taste good. Was very grainy, very hard to eat. Didn't taste anything like a regular noodle. But nowadays, I don't know how, I guess over time with consumer feedback, they've really refined these recipes, and chickpea pastas, brown rice and quinoa pastas, really any pasta substitute tastes pretty good and tastes pretty similar to the real thing. Of course, it's not the exact same thing as a regular pasta, but it's pretty close. And it helps you enjoy pasta, but in a healthier way with a little bit more fiber, a little bit more protein. Typically, these pastas are also more filling as a result of having more fiber and more protein. So, it's all around a great choice. And again, you don't have to cut foods out. You don't have to sacrifice. Let's say you really love fettuccine, Alfredo. You don't have to sacrifice that. You can make that with this pasta, and it'll taste very similar, and yet it's better aligned with your goals. Number 2, rice. A lot of people struggle with rice. If you go out to eat, the base of many meals at many restaurants is a bunch of rice. Rice, especially white rice itself, is very dense in carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates. It's not super filling. And so those are the 2 things we want to solve is we want to reduce the carbohydrates coming from it. We want to increase how filling it is. And my 2 recommendations on that front to swap out rice for is quinoa and or cauliflower rice. So quinoa is great because it's actually pretty similar in calories to white rice. Um, but it has more fiber and more protein and more nutrients compared to white rice. So although it's similar in calories, so if you had a cup of white rice versus a cup of quinoa, it's going to be similar from that perspective. The way that food affects you is going to be different. Again, quinoa is going to make you much more. It's going to be more filling. It's also going to give you more nutrients, give you a little bit of protein, help you hit your protein goal. Whereas rice is not doing much of any of that. And so a good way to think about rice and all these other foods that we're talking about as well is that they are what we would call empty calories. They provide you calories, but not with a lot of other benefits. And so a healthy swap is one that even if it doesn't necessarily lower the calories, it does give you other benefits that the original carb that we're trying to swap out is not giving you. Cauliflower rice is a great substitute if you're looking to really reduce calories. So cauliflower rice is very very low calorie. I mean, practically no calories. I mean, I off the top of my head, I can't remember how many calories are in a cup of cauliflower rice, but it's very very low. And so this is a great way to have a base for your meals where rice would traditionally be, and you remove hundreds of calories because a cup or two of rice could be a couple hundred calories, whereas cauliflower rice probably isn't even going to top over 50 calories. The great thing about cauliflower rice is it's pretty much tasteless as well. So you're not really like throwing in something that tastes wildly different than white rice. Quinoa is one of those that it does have a different taste profile than white rice. So you kind of have to get used to that or expect that. But cauliflower rice works really great if you don't really want to change a recipe all that much and change the taste of a meal. So great way to go. Has a little bit different texture than white rice, but really great from lowering calories perspective. Number three, breads, flat and flour products. Again, these get a lot of people, and a lot of people are eating a lot of bread and refined flour, tortillas, or another adjacent food here. And so, like pasta, there have been a lot of different low calorie, low carb, high protein alternatives put on the market and made to taste pretty good. And so at this point, I feel pretty confident recommending really any keto bread out there, low carb breads, tortillas, even high protein versions taste pretty good. And so this is a great way to go. You're not going to, again, because they've refined these recipes, it's not going to taste all that different, but it's going to have a lot less carbs, a lot more fiber. That's typically how they lower the carbs. I made a post on this just a couple days ago about net carbs. This is how they make bread lower carb is they pump it full of a lot of fiber, and fiber is not absorbed by the body. And so what they're able to do is they're able to take what's the carbs on a label. Let's say it's 45 grams of carbs, but you have, let's say, 20 grams of fiber. Net carbs is subtracting that fiber from those total carbohydrates because those 20 grams of fiber, which is considered a carbohydrate, won't be absorbed by the body. It doesn't count towards your carb intake. And so you'll see on packages net carbs, and that's how they can make a bread keto friendly or very low carb. High protein versions are going to look a little bit different from a macro perspective. Might not necessarily be lower carb, but they typically pump it full of a little bit more protein. I find that high protein breads, tortillas, the like, they tend to be pretty different in taste. Where low carb breads and tortillas, they taste pretty similar to the real thing. High protein versions definitely taste a little bit different. It's still bread, it's still a tortilla, but it tends to be a little bit more intense of a flavor, and a little bit different. So that's something to know as well. But those do exist as well. So and that's something to know is not every high protein version is a low carb version. Not every low carb bread or tortilla is going to be high protein. So always look at the label, double check these things, but know that there are high protein and low carb versions of bread, tortillas, all the like. Lastly is sugar substitutes. We are all human. Most people like sugar, and it's, a lot of people have sweet tooth, and that's why they struggle to lose weight. And so finding ways to substitute sugar out is really, really helpful for losing weight and keeping it off long term. And this is probably pretty controversial, but I by and large recommend that people include If they really struggle with sugar, things like artificial sweeteners or even natural low calorie sweeteners. So this would include stevia as a natural one, monk fruit extract as a natural one, sucrose, erythritol, aspartame are all artificial versions. In my opinion, there's no concrete evidence to warn against artificial sweeteners. There's a lot of hype out there in the news about how those are really, really bad. And typically, it's people taking, news people taking studies out of context, or misapplying study outcomes from animals to humans. And so again, there's really no concrete evidence in humans that artificial sweeteners are problematic. And so for health, that is. And so, what the research does show, though, is that artificial sweeteners, including natural low calorie sweeteners, do really help with lowering people's calorie intake and improving their health by losing body fat. So again, it's something I recommend for people, especially with a sweet tooth. I'm someone with a sweet tooth, so you're not going to catch me with a sugar soda, but I will have zero sugar sodas every now and then to quench that sweet craving. So in the store, what you're looking for. It's not just drinks. They'll make zero sugar or lower calorie versions of all sorts of things that are traditionally sweetened with sugar. Syrups, candies even have zero sugar versions nowadays. Yeah, lots of different stuff. And so again, kind of take your favorite, sugary food, and you can probably find a lower calorie, lower sugar option out there that's sweetened with one of the above sweeteners. And that pretty much covers all the different really tasty carbs that you can have and healthier options that you can swap in place. That way, again, you can still enjoy your diet, still, quench some of your favorite cravings, but just in a healthier way. And that's the key. Again, what I preach to all my clients is we have to get away from extremes. We have to get away from cutting out our favorite foods, cutting out food groups in general, if we want to lose fat and keep it off. Again, that's the primary goal with our program is we want to be the last fat loss program you ever do. And so we're not interested in helping you just lose the weight. We want to help you lose it and keep it off. And so this is how we're helping people do that every single day, helping them find swaps for their favorite foods. And again, eating in a way that aligns with their goals allows them to lose fat, but also in a way where they're still enjoying their favorite foods and not suffering. And it actually is something that they can sustain long term. So if you would like help with that, reach out. We'd love to have a discussion, see if you are a good fit, and stay tuned next week for our next episode.